Hello friends, this is Paige Evans and welcome back to the Scrapbook and Cards Today YouTube channel and a process video showing you how to back a cut file. This is one of my most favorite techniques. So you start off with a cut image. Most of the time I cut it out of white cardstock and then I fill in all of the little sections with pattern papers, and that process is called backing a cut file. So some are a lot more intricate than others, and I am excited to show you how to do this in my column Paige's Page. So there are just 4 examples, and whether you have a Cricut or a Cameo, you'll want to first add your choice of pattern paper or cardstock. And like I said, I tend to use white cardstock for backing cut files. So this is a mat for a silhouette cameo, and I use white textured cardstock by American Crafts. There are packages that come with 60 pieces in it, and I tend to buy those packs because I use white cardstock so often. And here is my mat for a Cricut. I have a Cricut Explore Air 2. And I have added cardstock to the mats, and I have cat hair everywhere. Let's just wipe that off. And now we'll go to my computer and I'll show you how to get your cut file ready to go. So first you'll want to download this Painted Rainbow cut file, and then for silhouette machines, you double click on the Dot Studio 3 file. That will open it right up in Silhouette Studio, and you can resize it if you like. And then once you're ready to cut it out, send. I am changing the material to cardstock textured, and I like to use a ratchet blade so that I get to determine the depth. So I usually have it at a 3 for American Crafts cardstock, and then press send. It takes about 5-6 minutes for it to cut out with a Silhouette Cameo. For Cricut, open up Cricut Design Space, and there are just a few more steps in order to get this into Design Space. So click on New Project. Over on the left, click Upload. Then click on Upload Image, and you can either browse and find it or drag and drop the .svg file. Click Upload, and then it's in your library. So to get it into the mat, click on it and then click Add to Canvas. So this is where it gets onto the mat. Now there's one more step you need to do. If you were to send it to your machine as is by clicking Make It, the raindrops that are part of the cut file are going to be on 2 different mats, and it's just more complicated. So I canceled and select all of the layers, click on Combine, and click Weld, and that is going to keep everything in its original position and cut it all out in one fell swoop. So click Send or Make It, and then click Continue, and then this is where you can adjust all of the settings on your Cricut. They're physically on the machine instead of in the software, so you can rotate the dial. I've got it set to Cardstock Plus, and then it chooses the depth of the blade to cut it out based on which material you use. So there we go. Here is what the project mats look like once they have finished cutting out. And another question I often get asked is, which machine is better, the Cricut or the Cameo? And honestly, there are pros and cons for each. So maybe if you don't have one, whichever one's on sale, because honestly, I have and use them both. So I've peeled off just the outer portion so you can see these a little bit easier. The next step is you want to carefully peel off the design from the mat. Don't let that deter you though from a Cricut. It usually cuts out really, really well. That was just user error. I didn't check my blade beforehand, and I think it's been like a month or 2 since I've cut something out, so Sandy, don't chew this. Both of my cats, I tell ya. I want to save these inner pieces because I am going to use them to help me back the cut file. So here is the rainbow part, and then I have a few raindrops that are loose, so you can always cut more of these if you want even more raindrops. Like I said, I am keeping these inner pieces on the mat because I am going to use them to help me with backing this cut file. Now, if you have the Cricut instead, it's the exact same process. Everything is exactly the same from here on out, whether you're using a Cricut, a Cameo, or even a Brother machine. So peel off your cut file, leave the backing pieces on the mat, and the next step is to choose which pattern papers you want to back your cut file with. Okay, so here is my cut file and the raindrops. Here are the inner pieces, and now I have chosen my pattern papers for the rainbow part. So pretty simple, picking rainbow pattern papers. These are all from my Blooming Wild collection with American Crafts. So I have 7 lines for my rainbow. So I've chosen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pattern papers. And now it's time to back it. So this is where I use the inner pieces. So grab the inner piece and it looks like this paper, it's just going to fit. So this is great for scraps. If this wouldn't have fit, it looks like it really is just going to fit. I would have grabbed another piece of pattern paper. So let me move this out of the way. Flip both your inner piece and the pattern paper upside down. Grab a pencil. Line it up, and then you want to trace. So since these pieces are so narrow, maybe you want to washi tape it down, but I got big hands, so I can just hold it in place with my big hands and trace right around. You have to move some of your fingers out of the way as you are tracing. And the reason I'm tracing on the back side is to save myself the step of erasing pencil lines, and I'll get more into detail about that in a second. The next step is to fussy cut it out. But when you're cutting it out, you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch. So here's my trace lines, and you can see I'm cutting it out about 1/8 of an inch wider than my pencil marks. This way, the pattern paper has something to grab onto on the back side of the cut file. If I were to cut this out the exact same size as my pencil marks, it would fall right on through the cut file, which is a different technique. You could just pop it on up inside the cut file with foam squares. So there are limitless ways to back cut files. I'm always exploring different options, but this is the most traditional way, is cutting out your pieces to fill in all of the little segments and sections. Slightly larger. And now I don't have to erase the pencil marks. Say I wanted to have this side showing, for example. So I wanted my butterflies showing. If I were to place my cut file on top, yes, I've cut it out a little bit bigger so it'll glue onto the back side, but then I would also have to erase the pencil marks because unless you align it up perfectly, chances are you're going to see those pencil marks. So this just saves a step of tracing on the back side. And now, grab your liquid glue. I like to use Precision Craft Glue by Bearly Art. The nozzle is very fine, like a needle, and you want to add glue all around on the back side of the cut file. This is very important to make sure you're on the back side. So my textured side is down. And you don't want to add too much glue or else it's going to spread. Once you've added the glue, grab your piece and the side that you want showing, turn it face down, and carefully press it into the glue. I need to make sure it's lined up all the way around, so just a sec. There was just a little gap on this right edge. And press it in place until it dries. And then you can flip it over. Ta-da! We've got our first rainbow ray done. So now I'm going to repeat for the next. So repetition is the best way to learn for some people. So you grab the next stripe of the rainbow, grab your next pattern paper. So mine's kind of an orangish color, and you want to flip them over to the back sides. This one should fit a little bit better, and then trace around it. Hold it in place with your fingers and trace around it with a pencil. Move your fingers out of the way as you're tracing, and it's okay if you mess up. Make sure I get it traced. Okay, and then cut it out. And remember, when you're cutting it out, cut it out about 1/8 of an inch wider. So this does take some time. It's kind of like a puzzle, figuring out the papers that you want to use to go in which sections. So I'm backing the rainbow with traditional colored pattern papers, red, well, it's not exactly red, but you know, similar to a rainbow order, and then back the raindrops, maybe with blues. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to back the paintbrush, which pattern papers I'm going to use. The bristles are typically tan, and I don't have tan in this collection. The handle can be any color, because you can always paintbrush handles. How meta is that? So it's to be determined. One section at a time. So once again, flip your cut file over to the back side. Grab your liquid glue. Add it around on the back side of where you want your pattern paper to go. The more you practice this, the easier and faster it becomes. So I got some glue on my little mat, just wipe that off. Grab the piece that you just cut out, flip it over to the back side, so the side you want showing is on face down, and press it in place. Press it in place until it's dried. And here our rainbow is starting to come together. So I'm going to finish backing the rest of these the exact same way I've been doing it for these previous stripes. So I'll grab the next piece, trace it on the back side of this yellow paper. Grab the next piece, trace it on the back side of this green paper. Next, on the back side of this blue. this darker blue and purple. I'll be right back. All of the stripes of my rainbows have now been backed, so here's a partial reveal. Ta-da! So fun. Loving it already. Rainbow for the win. So now I need to figure out which pattern papers I want to use to back the parts of the paintbrush and the clouds and the raindrops. For the bristles of the paintbrush, I found this pattern paper, which is paper 3 from Blooming Wild. I used the yellow side of a different paper. This one's a brand new one for the yellow section. But then these totally remind me of the bristles. So since I want my bristle stripes to be straight up and down, which means if I were to take the inner piece and just flip it over and try and guess, my stripes probably wouldn't be straight up and down. So for this instance, I want to place my cut file on top, grab the pencil, and very lightly trace on the inside. So then when I cut it out, I'm still going to cut it out 1/8 of an inch wider on all sides so it has something to grab onto on the back. This top part doesn't really matter because it's all going to be covered up. And what I mean by that is, let me erase the pencil marks first and then I can show you. So use the eraser. Erase any pencil marks that are showing. And then the reason I didn't have to fussy cut those squiggly lines is because it's all getting hidden and covered up by the previously backed sections. So I'm going to add glue like I've been doing for the previous pieces. My glue has dried up just a tad. So add glue around the inner edge, along the top. And I want to make sure that it still stays straight up and down. So I'm flipping that piece over and pressing the cut file right on top. So now it looks like paintbrush bristles. Another instance for this same technique of tracing in a specific area. Let me grab the pattern paper. Say for example, I want to trace, or I want to get just this inner part of this blue heart. Okay, so you can have yellow raindrops, red raindrops. Here's another example of a pattern paper where this would be a good technique of tracing on the front. So even down here, I want that exact specific piece. You could probably flip it over and get that exact spot where you need it, but sometimes it is easier to trace and then erase the tracing. If it's a simple shape like this raindrop, you could even hold it in place with your finger and then cut it out 1/8 of an inch wider, and this saves you the step of having to erase, but this is typically only a technique that can be done if the shape is fairly simple. So then this little piece is ready to be backed. So flip over your cut file, add liquid glue, and press your pattern papers in place. Okay friends, I am going to finish backing this cut file and I'll be back for the final reveal. Okay, are we ready for the big reveal? 3, 2, 1. Yay! Oh my goodness, I love backing cut files so much. Okay, so the next step is to figure out a background paper. So I've got a few different choices. Solid blue, this blue plaid, but it's a bit busy. I like how the cut file pops off of this darker background. And I like the colorful polka dots of this one. But when I think of rainbows, I think of just rain, and we've got the painterly effect. So I really like the way the rainbow and the paintbrush and everything looks on this watercolor background. So this is the direction I'm going to go. This is paper 18 from Blooming Wild, so I'll trim off the barcode strip. And then for a little bit of dimension and shadows, I want to attach the cut file with foam squares. So I've got my foam squares and I'll place them scattered around the back side of the cut file. The back sides are always a hot mess, but it's when you flip it over like we just did that you get the full results, and then nobody will ever see this back side, so it doesn't have to look great. Okay, I think that ought to do it. So we'll peel off the protective backing layer from these foam squares. This is just an additional step that I like to do to create dimension, because my papers and my cut file, my photo are very two-dimensional. So by using foam squares, you get those shadows and depth. So I'll flip it over. I'm going to center it on the page towards the bottom because I want to add some flowers growing out of my rainbow. I want to try and make this edge and this paintbrush straight. Then press it in place. I have a 3x4 photo of me and Jane. I'm so glad that she still lets me take pictures with her. So I am going to incorporate my photo into the overall design. And what I mean by that is my cut file is literally overlapping, and this foam square is in the way, so I'm going to just push it up and then tuck my tuck my photo right in. I'm trying to make sure my cloud and my raindrop aren't covering too much of me. There we go, and then don't forget about the little raindrops. We also backed these little raindrop pieces, so we can add them. And we can add these with foam, hi Amy. We can add these with foam squares as well. And this just gives, again, some dimension and shadows. Helps complete the rainbow look, because you can't have rainbows without rain. I swear that's a quote, right? Okay, so now I have these floral die cuts that I've already cut in half that I used for a previous project. And so my idea is I love rainbows, I love flowers, so I kind of just want to tuck them underneath. Go. And all around. She hears our sump pump outside and wants to chase the water coming up from underneath it. So tucking my flowers underneath the rainbow. I have one more, but I don't think I need it. So I'll save that one for another rainy day, LOL. And then for my title, from the puffy sticker, so everything that I'm using is from Blooming Wild. I'm placing it across the bottom of the cloud so it's not covering up anything. So it's got this white background so it pops off. And then coming in with some embellishments. So I've got a chipboard butterfly sticker, 2 of those for balance. These little chipboard stickers are from the chipboard frame stickers. So I'm creating a little cluster with them. So I got my chipboard stickers clustered together, and they all have florals on them to tie in the florals around this rainbow. And then of course, mini puffy flower stickers. So I'll place these tone on tone, meaning I've got the yellow flower in the yellow section, pink on pink, kind of a lighter pink, another orangish pink, blue on blue, and finally purple. The last thing I want to do is add journaling. So from the sticker book, there are some labels and I've trimmed this one in half. Again, I already did this for a previous layout and I didn't end up using it, but now it's the perfect spot because it's the same color and I can write my journaling right there. All right, friends, here is the finished page. Once the flowers were glued in place, I bent them up a little bit to give them some texture. And then I did write my journaling on this little journaling spot. I hope you are inspired to try backing cut files. It makes a great starting off point, a great focal feature of your pages. And I provided it as a free cut file for you here. So grab it and happy scrapping, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you again next time in my next article for Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine.